So once again, Ford has pulled, I think the legal term is called an oopsie, and decided to raise prices on existing reservation holders. So there's a very specific difference here than the price hikes we typically see with Tesla, which is the majority of the EV market, so that's what we're normally talking about here. But Ford announced in a blog post this morning some good news and some bad news. And the good news is, thanks to some improvements in heated seat technology, Ford is able to increase the range on the F-150 Lightning Pro version, XLT, and Lariat. Basically, any F-150 Lightning that comes with the standard range battery now has an EPA estimated range of 240 miles instead of 230. So, okay. There also appears to be some new paint color options. While announcing these great new updates to the F-150 Lightning, they're also sneaking in a little minor note. Oh yeah, we're increasing prices by around $7,000 across the board. Anyway, aren't we excited for the future of electrification? So price hikes are inevitable during an inflationary environment, so I'm not really surprised that there's price hikes, but I think what I'm more disappointed by, because Rivian made the same mistake and walked it back within a couple of days, Ford is raising prices on people that already put down money to reserve this thing. People across subreddits and Twitter are very, very annoyed and upset because obviously when they unveiled the F-150 Lightning and said that it would start around $40,000, a lot of people were pretty dang excited for this thing, and people were putting down money, and basically ever since that unveiling they were waiting for updates. A few people were offered F-150 Lightnings at certain prices, but oftentimes backed out on the order, either because the dealer markup was unrealistic or they just weren't ready to go through with it yet. Ford is saying that they're going to reach out to people who delayed their order with private pricing, so we're not exactly sure if that means they're getting a lower rate than what is advertised, because we don't know what the dealers are going to charge. But if you were never even offered the chance to buy your F-150 Lightning, then this price hike applies to you, and it's not a minor one. A $7,000 increase on a $40,000 car, that's a pretty massive difference, and it's upsetting a ton of people that are likely going to end up not going through with their order. So I know a lot of people like to think that, well, Ford actually cares about affordability, and that's why they want to have lower prices, and they want to make the F-150 so much cheaper than the competition. Well, turns out once you actually start realizing, wait a minute, we have basically infinite demand, and we can't really build that many of these trucks because we're limited on cell supply and we're limited by the chip shortage, which means we can get away with charging whatever we want for these trucks because we know there will be somebody willing to pay for it. Well, that's how you end up with situations like this. And I just want to use it as an example as Tesla, Rivian, Ford, they all understand the laws of supply and demand. Tesla doesn't raise prices and charge a lot for their vehicles just because they're greedy. It's because it's not a great logistics situation to be in when everyone wants to basically flip your vehicle for a profit and everybody's waiting to buy one at a certain locked-in price. Turns out, even if you put $100 down to reserve a Lightning, that didn't lock in anything, and that's what I want people to expect with the Cybertruck as well. The reservation really guarantees you nothing, and Ford and their F-150 Lightning reservation holders are unfortunately a painful example of how companies can get away with this when they have essentially infinite demand. So that means that the F-150 Lightning Pro, now with a 240-mile range, now starts around $47,000 before dealer markup. So that's assuming you can find a dealer that's willing to be reasonable with you, and expect a $7,000 to $8,000 price hike across the board. So a lot of people are thinking that Ford was probably willing to do this because of the federal tax credit being passed through the House. It's not officially into law yet, but most people are saying it's likely going to be passed. But the reason I don't really see how that makes much sense is Ford had not gone through their federal EV tax credits yet anyway. So yeah, they would run out if they hit 200,000 EV deliveries, but I don't think they were quite there yet. And it's also not a point of sale tax credit, which means that even if next year you can get an F-150 Lightning with the $7,500 EV tax credit, that's only going to come into apply come tax season. That doesn't take it off the price of the total vehicle. It's one of those potential included savings type deals, and I think this is absolutely going to turn a lot of people away from going through with their orders. And yet, as much as I'm docking on them for doing this and not really being loyal to people who put money down on this truck, especially when Ford was trying to pitch it so much as an everyday vehicle, you know, an affordable truck for the masses, and yet they're constantly raising prices on people that put money down on it, I do still have to admit it is probably the pickup truck I would go with if I was in the market for one. Thankfully, my lifestyle doesn't really justify a pickup truck, but you gotta look at your other options here in the electric truck space, which there's really not many. You've got the crazy expensive Hummer, which GM is building, you know, like 12 a day today, and it's like 6 figures, so that's not really an option for many people. Plus, the bed's not even that big. Efficiency is basically the worst in any EV. But outside of that, you've got the Rivian R1T, which they are not taking orders for anymore. You can put down a reservation, but that refundable $1,000 locks in no pricing, and Rivian says that new orders probably aren't going to be delivered until the end of 2023, so you've got a long wait, and even the cheapest possible Rivian you can get is still around $70,000 before the tax credit, but most of Rivian's models are probably over the tax credit threshold of $80,000 for pickup trucks. So Rivian's nice and pretty cool truck, but it's dang expensive, and the Cybertruck, which we have very little information on because Tesla loves to not tell us anything about it. For all we know, it could be a 6-figure pickup truck standard. Even for the cheapest possible version, it could be well over $100,000. Even if you don't believe that, it's still probably going to be north of $80,000, at least for the first couple of years of production. And then you got the Lightning, which, okay, let's assume there's a $5,000, $10,000 dealer markup, and you have to pay for this updated pricing. That's still sub $60,000. So again, not as great a deal as Ford made it out to be when they first unveiled it, saying it's a $40,000 truck, plus you get $7,500 off with your tax credit. So this is really a $33,000 electric truck with over 200 miles of range. Those specs were so good and too good to be true because basically only a handful of people actually got an F-150 Lightning at that price. People in the subreddits are saying that production is so limited right now and so few people have actually taken delivery that the $40,000 F-150 Lightning was actually less common and less delivered than the $35,000 Model 3, because once Ford started ramping up production, very few Lightning Pros were actually delivered, and now moving forward, for people completing their F-150 Lightning orders, they're gonna have to pay the updated pricing, or they're offered some kind of private pricing, and I don't know why they have to be private about that price, but again, this is all assuming you have a dealer that's somewhat reasonable in your area, because Ford is still stuck with the dealer model. So I will give Ford credit and still say that, hey, at least they increased the range, and as far as affordable electric pickup trucks go, this is still the cheapest. You know, they're not coming up to the same price as a Rivian or the same price as a Hummer, so I guess you could argue in that way it is still the most affordable option. It is still a very capable pickup truck with a huge frunk, lots of power outlets, a decent sized bed, and you know, it's built on the same footprint as the most popular pickup truck for the last few decades. So if you're the type of person that wants an electric pickup truck but you don't want anything that different, you just want it to fit into your everyday life just like your last pickup truck did, I think the F-150 Lightning is still a great option even with these price hikes. But absolutely, goes without saying, this is really, really disappointing, and my heart goes out to all the people that reserved an F-150 Lightning expecting to pay a certain price that are now going to have to pay more, because I know the vast majority, probably 90% of people that actually put a reservation down on a Lightning didn't get their Lightnings yet because Ford has not ramped it up too quickly. Even though these trucks have a lot in common with their gas counterparts, they need an insane number of batteries, which Ford just does not have access to. And as far as I can tell at this point, Rivian still has Ford beat in the electric pickup truck space. In terms of total vehicles they have produced, Ford hasn't given too much concrete details on the numbers yet, but it's not that much, especially considering we know that there's over 150,000 reservations for the F-150 Lightning. And I get the impression a vast majority of those reservations were for the more affordable trims. I don't think most people were buying the Platinum variant because it costs a whole lot more, and you're really just getting a few more luxury features and a little bit extra range with that option. So I think most people were probably ordering the Pro or the XLT, and now that they're gonna have to pay $7,000 or $8,000 more for their truck, that's frustrating. That's really, really annoying, and I try my best in my videos to prepare people for the worst because of these disappointing moments and these disappointing realities, and I think people will continue to be depressed and disappointed in EV pricing as long as they don't understand what the market is dealing with right now. Companies have this kind of power over us, and they can charge whatever they want for these vehicles and get away with it because there's so much overwhelming demand for all EVs, but especially electric pickup trucks, because there's very few options out there. But especially in the US, there's a ton of people buying pickup trucks. They're very, very popular models, and there's very few availability at the few models that are being made. That's why they cost so much. What's preventing EV adoption is not affordability. It's not that we haven't figured out a way to make a $25,000 EV truck yet. It's because we haven't figured out a way to mass produce EV trucks to match the demand. So you're essentially competing with others in a silent auction whenever you decide that I can't go through this order, it's too expensive, someone else in line is willing to move up and pay for it. So Ford can get away with this, and I expect a very similar situation with the Cybertruck. They're gonna jack up prices, and I don't think really anything is going to be honored for people that even ordered on unveil night all those years ago. I highly encourage you to check out the Cybertruck pre-order agreement if you don't believe me. Basically, they cover themselves legally. Even with full self-driving, they will get a lot of backlash and they will get a lot of hate for not honoring those prices if they don't want to, but legally they would be totally in the right. So how do you guys feel about the F-150 Lightning updated pricing? Do you still think it's a worth it pickup truck? Is any of you F-150 Lightning fans out there now considering just going all in and upgrading to a Rivian or waiting for the Silverado EV? Because they said that would start at $40,000. Maybe GM will actually stay true to their word, given they're cutting pricing on the Bolt, which may have more to do with the lack of demand for that vehicle. But feel free to let me know all your thoughts down below. And thank you to everyone on Patreon supporting this channel directly. Seriously, helps us out a ton, as does just watching these videos. So thanks again, and have an excellent rest of your day.